where, you know, he was really in it, and I was really in it, and we both wanted the scene to be really good, but he was kicking me really hard in the ribs, you know, and the first few takes I was like, man, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to deal with it because it's pain, because, you know, I don't want him to feel like he has to, like, think about that. But after like 3 or 4 takes, I was like, dude, you gotta stop, you're kicking me in the ribs really hard, man.
Well, let's go ahead and open it up to questions. I'm sure we have a lot from the audience. Let's start over here. What do we got?
Hey, I was just curious, it's kind of a two-part question. Do they make you aware of how everything is going to mesh together and how the final result of the Defenders is going to work ahead of time? Like, do you know that? And I guess the two parts of that is the open-ended stuff at the end of this last season. There's a lot of unanswered questions. Did they write that with the third season of Daredevil in mind, or with the Defenders and the bigger picture?
Sadly, it's a very easy question to answer because they tell us absolutely nothing. And to the point where I didn't even know how season 2 was going to end up. Like, I was reading the episodes as they come in, so with Defenders, I know we're going to do it. I have no idea who's going to be show running it. I don't know what the story's going to be. I don't know what, other than the 4 Defenders, I don't know what other characters are going to be involved. And we have no idea if we're going to be commissioned for a season 3. So, I mean, I think they wrote season 2 with the intention of there being something to kind of unfold in further seasons. But until that is actually officially, you know.
I think it's pretty safe to say we all want it. So.
Cool. I'll just get Netflix on the line real quick and we can...
Great question, man. Thank you. What do we got over here? Go ahead.
So, I know that they're setting up the Defenders with Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Daredevil and Iron Fist. But if you guys had the chance to interact with any other Marvel characters, who would you interact with?
You mean like from the Avengers and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Well, this wouldn't make any sense, but...
yeah, of course it would.
I'm a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. And I would like to work with Star-Lord, that would be awesome.
Like maybe you could defend him in like a suit or something.
Yeah, why not?
Charlie?
Yeah, again, I have to preface this by saying I have no inside information. I have no idea if this is something that would happen in the future. But, you know, having become a big fan of the Daredevil comics now, I think at some point, if we could continue to make this show, I'd love to see Bullseye show up. You know, I just think that the show, you know, the show, in order to feel complete, would have to have some sort of a Bullseye mention or. You know, come into that world in some way.
And say also, I just want to say, Eldon, fan of the beard.
Oh, thank you. I grew it myself.
Going along with that, the Avengers question, are there any characters in the Defenders, like the other 3, or even maybe like Patsy Walker, if she comes in as Hellcat, that you guys are like? Do you think Matt Murdock or Foggy are going to look forward to working with, or are going to be afraid of? Like, do you have any like insight into how your characters are going to react to any of those characters?
No. Honestly, I don't know. I just honestly, I feel super lucky to have the job, you know. But I don't know the comics that well, to be honest. So as the scripts come in and things happen, and it just, you know, it just seems like icing on the cake, you know. Yeah. Honestly, like, as an actor, I'm just happy to have a job. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't. Charlie probably has a better answer than me.
Charlie, do you have a better answer?
No, I love it when there are these subtle mentions in both of the shows. You know, I like it when you know, having become kind of a fan, I like those little mentions of, you know. It's the obvious one was in season 1 where we talked about, you know, there was a mention of the man in the iron suit, or the hammer, the magic hammer, and of course all fans know who we're talking about. And I like that they do it in a way where it's just a hint, it's just a subtle Easter egg and nothing major. And of course in Jessica Jones there was mention of Daredevil, which was cool. So I like that what they seem to be doing is that all the shows remain basically autonomous. With little hints here and there, and then of course they're going to collide in a big way with Defenders.
Yeah.
So we'll get to see what those relationships and those dynamics are like.
Great, okay. Let's go over here.
Hi guys, how's it going? I just want to say I enjoy the fight scenes and the choreography. I have a two-part question. Charlie, do you A, have a martial arts background, and B, in the series, what martial arts are they basing the fight scenes on? I mean, the choreography and so on.
Yeah, okay, so the answer is no. I'd done no martial art training before this job. We have an amazing stunt coordinator, a guy called Phil Silvera. I have a stunt double called Chris Brewster, who's an extraordinary man, and who's a martial arts champion, and has been for years, since he was like 9 years old. So I basically just spend a lot of my time working with them, learning the scenes, learning the sequences as best I can. I've got better over the course of 2 years, so I'm able to do, you know, I'm able to do almost all of the fights now. For season 2, I can do all of them. There are certain moves I can't do, you know? So, you know, whenever like Daredevil leaves the ground for more than one turn, definitely, definitely not me. I do this bit. And then they cut, yeah? But I wish I knew, to be honest, the second part of your question, I wish I knew. The thinking behind Daredevil's training from Stick was that he learned everything. You know, he just learned so much of it. And there's a scene in series 2, episode 5, where a lecturer is doing different forms and he's picking up on them, he knows what they are. So we kind of said that he's picking and choosing what moves suit him. He's not doing any one style at any one time. So, you know, Chris and Phil, they know and they tell me, I just don't remember.
Thank you very much.
Great question. Let's jump over here now.
Good afternoon, you wonderful gentlemen. I have a question for each of you. I'll start off with Eldon with the most important question. How are you going to pull off that sexy man beard in your new corner office lawyer job?
Well, sadly, I don't think that's going to happen. I seem to always lose my beard every time I get a job. I remember Jeff Loeb saying, you know, I can't find any comics where Foggy has a beard. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to get to keep it.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thanks, man.
And Charlie,
Second most important question.
Right, second most, much less in depth. First thing I ever saw you in was Stardust. Loved it. So quirky and funny and a fairy tale. I'm not a big fan of fairy tales, but it was great. And you know, that was what, 9 years ago, I think, at this point. And so
Thanks, man.
It's awesome. Right, well, you look the same. And then when I first saw Daredevil, I was like, I know that guy, and it's really awesome to see you land such a great role. And I was wondering what kind of like journey that is over a course of 9 years, you know, and the elated state that you would probably be in getting casted.
So a couple of years ago, I was in a restaurant in London, and the waitress came up to me and she said, "Oh my God, you're the guy from Stardust." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like really excited, you know. And she was like, "Oh my God, I love that film. It's so cool." And I was like, "Oh, thanks so much." And then she looked at me and she goes, "So why'd you give it all up?" I'm like, you know, I've been working, man, you know. I just haven't been doing anything good, you know. You know, the truth is, it's been an interesting journey. You know? That film felt like a big deal at the time. It was the biggest budget movie for a British film, and it had the crazy cast, you know, and it didn't perform well in the United States. It didn't take a lot of money, you know. There was issues behind it. One of which is Rush Hour 3 came out the same weekend, apparently. You know, and then it was a kind of, for me, it was a kind of a humbling experience, and it was a complete rebuild, and you know, and I did a bunch of things here and there, and nothing was really working. I did a lot of stage, which was, you know, where I started, so I loved that. And then I took this tiny, tiny role on a TV show that ended up becoming a much bigger role in Boardwalk Empire. And yeah, so, massive amount of Boardwalk Empire fans. So that's, you know, and that was the beginning. Actually, the interesting story behind that is Joe Quesada, who's what used to be the chief executive of Marvel, and now works works as overseeing all the shows. He apparently had seen Boardwalk Empire and said if we ever get the rights to Daredevil, he'd be a great Matt Murdock. Because they had the rights were over at Fox after they made the movie. So that's been a really interesting, cool journey. Thanks for asking.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Let's go over here now.
My question is for Charlie. How much of your own stunts do you do in the show?
So it depends a lot on the. Thanks for the question. It depends a lot on the scene. I learn all of the scenes in their entirety, and then what happens is we shoot all of the scenes with me, and then we shoot all of the scene with Chris Brewster, my stunt double, and then when they get in the edit, they pick and choose, and. I really enjoy that aspect of it, and I really get stuck in. I really love doing it, so I think they're able to use a lot of me, and they try and use me as much as they can. There are certain things I can't do. There are certain things I'm incapable of doing, and there are certain things I'm legally not allowed to attempt. Sometimes the funny thing is, me and Chris look very similar, and sometimes we watch the sequences when they're done, and even we can't tell who it is. So that's kind of become a game. But the truth is, I do a lot of them. Yeah.
I do all my own stunts too. I sit down by myself, stand up by myself.
Let's go over here now.
I have a question about the Daredevil suit. How long does it take you to get in and out of that thing, and is it comfortable while you're doing stuff?
Yeah, it's I have to be really honest because it actually is a really, really brilliantly made suit, and it's very functional. I've got it down now to about 15, 20 minutes, and I can do almost all of it by myself. I need a little help with a couple of areas. Not those areas. The cool thing is, I read, I don't know if this is true, but I read that Christian Bale had a real problem peeing with his suit. And so this was a discussion that we had when we were making this. And they fixed it. You have 3 zippers, right? So you can create a hole without having to take off the top part of it. This is the kind of stuff you have to think about. It's like,
It's the same reason I'm not wearing my Batman costume today.
Right. You never know when you're gonna get a chance for a toilet break when ninjas are fighting.
Thank you.
Good question. Let's go over here now, please.
This question is for both of you. Now, of course, filming, you guys are going to spend a lot of time together, and as we can see now, you guys seem chummy. You guys seem like you're friends. You talk outside work. I'm going to turn you against each other. So, what would you say is the other one's most annoying quality while filming on set?
I know my answer right away. Well, here's maybe
No, take your time to think about it.
just a tip for maybe some other actors who will be working with Charlie. Don't stand downwind of him after he's had a protein shake. He has a lot of protein shakes. He's in very good shape.
That's funny. I do have to have a lot of protein. That's funny. I didn't know you noticed that.
It's hard not to notice.
I guess with Eldon, there are days where, I'll come to work and we have this big scene, and I'll be thinking about the scene, and I've got these ideas, and I want to, and I'll get to Eldon, and I'll be like, hey dude, I don't know how you feel, but I was thinking maybe we could do this for the scene, and Eldon will go, yeah, I haven't read it yet, so let me just take a look, and I'm sure that's cool.
It's true. But I don't know how to read. These are just to pick up women. They're not actually functional.
We were finishing an episode, and I just got the new episode, and I said to Eldon, oh dude, did you read the new episode? And he's like, yeah, I haven't read this one yet.
I have a son lose almost too, so in my defense,
He's ready.
He's very smart, he is, yeah.
Great question, thank you. Let's go over here now.
Hello. As a visually impaired individual, I mean, I watched a lot of film anyway, prior to losing my vision and whatnot. But I noticed that you guys do not over-exaggerate, which a lot of film does, tendencies of blind individuals. Do you guys go through some sort of sensitivity training, or do you have someone on set that helps you guys with that? With, you know, the character of Foggy doing the sighted guide, obviously every now and then you got, you know, Matt using his cane, you know, with the two-tap function. So I was just curious as to how are you guys aware of such things?
Yeah, great question. It's kind of potentially a long-winded answer. So I worked very closely with a gentleman called Joe Stretchy, who is affiliated with the American Foundation for the Blind. He's been legally blind for 20 years. And I basically spent a huge amount of time with him leading up to the first season, and then he was on set for a great deal of the first season. And I just kind of like, I just threw myself in terms of asking, you know, I filmed him the whole time. I filmed him walking through the streets. I went blindfolded through the streets with him, which was a hell of an experience. It's a literal example of the blind leading the blind. You know, I just asked him, I had him like make cups of tea for me. I mean, I put him to work basically. But just like filming him doing household chores and walking around his apartment and walking around my apartment. And little things like, you know, I just thought that because Daredevil has these heightened senses and therefore these powers, the most important thing was that there was consistency. Otherwise you're going to get confused about what he can and can't do. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
So obviously, when Matt is on his own, or he's with someone like Foggy who knows about him, he operates as if he's someone who isn't visually impaired. The tricky thing about that is whenever he goes to pick something up or he opens a door, whatever, he would never look at the object. So that's something that obviously takes a lot of practice, because you know he would be able to reach for a cup of tea or his cane or whatever it is right next to him, but he'd never need to look in order to see it, in order to find it. When he's with people who don't know, and he's maintaining this illusion that he functions like, you know, a visually impaired person that we would recognize, he. Obviously, the cane technique I wanted to be correct and appropriate. The sighted guide I wanted to be as Joe does it. So I just copied all of those things. The thing that people sometimes I think get confused about is that when Joe walks into an apartment block that he hasn't been in before, he uses his cane. When he's been there 3 or 4 times, he doesn't use his cane because he knows the geography. So what you'll notice is that Matt never uses his cane in his apartment. He never uses his cane in the office. But if he goes into a new office or he's in a new space, he will use it. The one thing I wish we got to do, sorry, I get news, it's going to be long-winded. The one thing I wish we got to do was I wish there were more scenes where Matt was able to use, you know, his cane technique, because I don't think that he would actually use sighted guide as often as he does. The problem is when you're filming a TV show, in order to do that authentically, you'd waste too much time, too much movie time, kind of like having to like not know which direction you're going, and that, you know what I mean? You'd potentially kind of take away from the drama. So there's the one regret that I have, is that I think with the show, more often than not, Matt does have to use sighted guide when there is a possibility. There is a scene, interestingly enough, in season 2, where Foggy and Karen aren't talking to Matt. They're really mad at him. And there's a scene where we walk down this corridor, and I was like, there's no way they would help him in this point. And there's no way he'd take help from them. So that was an interesting, because we had to walk down this corridor really quickly. And of course I wanted to make sure that felt authentic, but at the same time, you know, didn't take up too much time from the scene. So, there you go.
Thank you, you did very well.
Thank you, sir.
Great question, thank you.
Great question.
Let's jump over here now.
I had a 2-part question about character development. I wanted to ask, Foggy seemed to go into more of a serious tone. He kind of can handle himself now. Where do you see him going on into, if there is a season 3? will him and Matt ever talk again? Is he kind of just off in his own world now that he has found a job?
Well, you know, the truth is I don't really know, you know, but I that's fine. I mean, it's so far, you know, the writers have done such an amazing job making all the characters feel like they have their own journey and they're not just there to, you know, help someone else's story along. So, you know, the truth is I don't really know what's going to happen with Foggy, but you know, I do feel like it'll probably be something good. I mean, they've really done such a great job so far. You know, I really, it's a pleasure to be able to work on the show, and you know, as the scripts come in, you know, I'm excited to read them. And, sometimes I'm excited. But no, it's, you know, I trust them completely. So whatever happens, I'm sure it'll be good.
The other question I had was for the character of Matt Murdock. His code was against killing, and John Bernthal, the Punisher, kind of pushed him to think about that code. And towards the end of the film, he had stopped Elektra from killing that ninja and ended up getting her almost killed. And towards the end of the show, it's almost like he didn't care who she was killing and who was dying. And after the events that happened at the very end, where do you think he stands, the character stands with his code?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know that he even knows, and this is something that I kind of thought a lot about as you know, towards the end of the second season. There's a scene with the Punisher with John Bernthal's character on the it's the way I tell him.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. It's okay. There's a scene with John Bernthal on a boat, and I believe Matt says something along the lines of, maybe your way, maybe in this instance your way is what it's going to take. And I had a long conversation with the writers about that. It was basically that was the only way we could even just acknowledge the possibility that Matt was conceding to the idea that his way wasn't working, basically. And I don't think he would ever admit that killing someone is the right way to go. Also, the question is a little bit confusing because when you mentioned Elektra, are those guys, do we consider them, do we think of them in the same way that we think of other people? Because obviously they're not quite, they don't seem quite human in the same way that you know, like characters from the other storylines do, like the blacksmith and stuff. So that's a kind of a blurry line there. And certainly with what happens with Nobu, like, I mean, you can't, I don't know how you, he's dead already, isn't he? You know, how do you not justify that? So, you know, I think maybe he's going to have to reevaluate if there is a season 2, if we get to see more of it, or in Defenders even. Sorry, he's going to have to.